Togo.
Togo /Togo/, officially the Togolese Republic, is a country in West Africa bordered by Ghana to the west, Benin to the east and Burkina Faso to the north. It extends south to the Gulf of Guinea, where its capital Lomé is located. Togo covers an area of approximately 57,000 square kilometers with a population of approximately 6.7 million. Togo is a tropical, sub-Saharan nation, highly dependent on agriculture, with a climate that provides good growing seasons. Togo is one of the smallest countries in all of Africa. The official language is French, with many other languages spoken in Togo, particularly those of the Gbe family. The largest religious group in Togo are those with indigenous beliefs, and there are significant Christian and Muslim minorities. Togo is a member of the United Nations, African Union, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, South Atlantic Peace and Cooperation Zone, La Francophonie and Economic Community of West African States. From the 11th to the 16th century, various tribes entered the region from all directions. From the 16th century to the 18th century, the coastal region was a major trading center for Europeans in search of slaves, earning Togo and the surrounding region the name the Slave Coast. In 1884, Germany declared Togoland a protectorate. After World War I, rule over Togo was transferred to France. Togo gained its independence from France in 1960. In 1967, Gnassingbé Ouédima led a successful military coup, after which he became president. At the time of his death in 2005, Ouédima was the longest-serving leader in modern African history, after having been president for 38 years. In 2005, his son Faure Gnassingbé was elected president.
History.
During the period from the 11th century to the 16th century, various tribes entered the region from all directions, the Yu from the east, and the Mina and Gwin from the west. Most settled in coastal areas. The slave trade began in the 16th century, and for the next 200 years the coastal region was a major trading center for Europeans in search of slaves, earning Togo and the surrounding region the name the Slave Coast. In 1884 a treaty was signed at ʻtoʊɡoʊ with the King Leopold III, whereby Germany claimed a protectorate over a stretch of territory along the coast and gradually extended its control inland. In 1905, this became the German colony of Togoland. During World War I this German territory was invaded by British troops from the neighboring Gold Coast colony and French troops coming from Dahomey. After the end of World War I, there was discussion of having the colony be administered by Czechoslovakia, however this did not come to fruition. Togoland was separated into two League of Nations mandates, administered by Britain and France. After World War II, these mandates became UN Trust territories. The residents of British Togoland voted to join the Gold Coast as part of the new independent nation of Ghana in 1957, and French Togoland became an autonomous republic within the French Union in 1959.
Independence 1960.
Independence for French Togoland came in 1960 under Sylvanus Olympio. He was assassinated in a military coup on January 13, 1963 by a group of soldiers under the direction of Sergeant Etienne Ouédima Gnassingbé. Opposition leader Nicolas Grunitzky was appointed president by the Insurrection Committee, headed by Emmanuel Bourges. On January 13, 1967, Ouédima Gnassingbé overthrew Grunitzky in a bloodless coup and assumed the presidency, which he held from that date until his sudden death on February 5, 2005 after 38 years in power, the longest occupation of any dictator in Africa. The military's immediate installation of his son, Faure Gnassingbé, as president provoked widespread international condemnation, except from France. Some democratically elected African leaders such as Abdoulaye Wade of Senegal and Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria supported the move, thereby creating a rift within the African Union.
Economy.
Togo serves as a regional commercial and trade center. The government's decade-long effort, supported by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to implement economic reform measures, encourage foreign investment, and bring revenues in line with expenditures, has stalled. Political unrest, including private and public sector strikes throughout 1992 and 1993, jeopardized the reform program, shrank the tax base, and disrupted vital economic activity. The 12th January 1994 devaluation of the currency by 50% provided an important impetus to renewed structural adjustment. These efforts were facilitated by the end of strife in 1994 and a return to overt political calm. Progress depends on increased openness in government financial operations, to accommodate increased social service outlays, and possible downsizing of the armed forces, on which the regime has depended to stay in place. Lack of aid, along with depressed cocoa prices, generated a 1% fall in GDP in 1998, with growth resuming in 1999. Togo is a member of the Organization for the Harmonization of Business Law in Africa, OHADA.
Geography.
Togo is a small West African nation. It borders the Bight of Benin in the south. Ghana lies to the west. Benin to the east. And to the north Togo is bound by Burkina Faso. Togo lies mostly between latitude 6 deg and 11 degn, and longitude 0 deg and 2 dege. In the north the land is characterized by a gently rolling savanna in contrast to the center of the country, which is characterized by hills. The south of Togo is characterized by a savanna and woodland plateau which reaches to a coastal plain with extensive lagoons and marshes. The land size is 21,925 square miles, 56,785 kilometers 2, with an average population density of 253 people per square mile, 98 per kilometer 2.
Climate.
The climate is generally tropical with average temperatures ranging from 23 degc, 73 degf, on the coast to about 30 degc, 86 degf, in the northernmost regions, with a dry climate and characteristics of a tropical savanna. To the south there are two seasons of rain, the first between April and July and the second between September and November, even though the average rainfall is not very high.
Government.
Togo's transition to democracy is stalled. Its democratic institutions remain nascent and fragile. President Gnassingbé Ouédima, who ruled Togo under a one-party system, died of a heart attack on February 5, 2005. Gravely ill, he was being transported by plane to a foreign country for care. He died in transit, whilst over Tunisia. Under the Togolese constitution, the President of the Parliament, Famper Ouattara Nacheba, should have become President of the country, pending a new presidential election to be called within 60 days. Nacheba was out of the country, returning on an Air France plane from Paris. The Togolese Army, known as Forces Armées Togolaises, FAT, or Togolese Armed Forces closed the nation's borders, forcing the plane to land in nearby Benin. With an engineered power vacuum, the parliament voted to remove the constitutional clause that would have required an election within 60 days, and declared that Ouédima's son, Faure Gnassingbé, would inherit the presidency and hold office for the rest of his father's term. Faure was sworn in on February 7, 2005, despite international criticism of the succession. The African Union described the takeover as a military coup d'état. International pressure came also from the United Nations. Within Togo, opposition to the takeover culminated in riots in which several hundred died. There were uprisings in many cities and towns, mainly located in the southern part of the country. In the town of ʻtoʊɡoʊ reports of a general civilian uprising followed by a large-scale massacre by government troops went largely unreported. In response, Faure Gnassingbé agreed to hold elections and on February 25, Gnassingbé resigned as president, but soon afterward accepted the nomination to run for the office in April. On April 24, 2005, Gnassingbé was elected president of Togo, receiving over 60% of the vote according to official results. His main rival in the race had been Emmanuel Bob Akitani from the Union des Forces du Changement, UFC, or Union of Forces for Change. However, electoral fraud was suspected, due to a lack of European Union or other independent oversight. Parliament designated Deputy President, Bonfim Abbas, as interim president until the inauguration. On May 3, 2005, Faure Gnassingbé was sworn in as the new president, and the European Union suspended aid to Togo in support of the opposition claims, unlike the African Union and the United States, which declared the vote reasonably fair. The Nigerian president and chair of the AU, Olusegun Obasanjo, sought to negotiate between the incumbent government and the opposition to establish a coalition government, but rejected an AU Commission appointment of former Zambian President, Kenneth Kaunda, as special AU envoy to Togo. In June, President Gnassingbé named opposition leader Adam Kodo as the prime minister. In October 2007, after several postponements, elections were held under proportional representation. This allowed the less populated north to seat as many MPs as the more populated south. The president-backed party Rally of the Togolese People, RPT, won outright majority, with the UFC coming second and the other parties claiming inconsequential representation. Again, vote-rigging accusations were leveled at the RPT, supported by the civil and military security apparatus. Despite the presence of an EU observer mission, cancelled ballots and illegal voting took place, the majority of which in RPT strongholds. The election was declared fair by the international community and praised as a model with little intimidation and few violent acts for the first time since a multi-party system was reinstated. On December 3, 2007, Comlan Mali of the RPT was appointed to Prime Minister, succeeding Agboy Ibot. However, on September 5, 2008, after only 10 months in office, Mali resigned as Prime Minister of Togo. Faure Gnassingbé won re-election in the March 2010 presidential election, taking 61% of the vote against Jean-Pierre Fabre from the UFC, who had been backed by an opposition coalition called FRAC, Republican Front for Change. Though the March 2010 election was largely peaceful, electoral observers noted procedural errors and technical problems, and the opposition did not recognize the results, claiming irregularities had affected the outcome. Periodic protests followed the election. In May 2010, longtime opposition leader Gilchrist Olympio announced that he would enter into a power-sharing deal with the government, a coalition arrangement which provides the UFC with 8 ministerial posts. In June 2012, electoral reforms prompted protesters to take to the street in Lomé for several days. Protesters sought a return to the 1992 constitution that would re-establish presidential term limits. July 2012 saw the surprise resignation of the Prime Minister, Gilbert Hungbo. Days later, the Commerce Minister, Kwasi Ahumezanu, was named to lead the new government. In the same month, the home of opposition leader Jean-Pierre Fabre was raided by security forces, and thousands of protesters again rallied publicly against the government crackdown.
And administrative divisions.
Togo is divided into 5 regions, which are subdivided in turn into 30 prefectures and 1 commune. From north to south, the regions are Cervines, Kara, Centrale, Plateau and Maritime.
Foreign relations.
Although Togo's foreign policy is non-aligned, it has strong historical and cultural ties with Western Europe, especially France and Germany. Togo recognizes the People's Republic of China, North Korea, and Cuba. It re-established relations with Israel in 1987. Togo pursues an active foreign policy and participates in many international organizations. It is particularly active in West African regional affairs and in the African Union. Relations between Togo and neighboring states are generally good.
Military.
The military of Togo, in French FAT, Forces Armées Togolaises, Togolese Armed Forces, consists of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Gendarmerie. Total military expenditures during the fiscal year of 2005 totaled 1.6% of the country's GDP. Military bases exist in Lomé, Temeja, Kara, Nouadhibou, and Dapane. The current Chief of the General Staff is Brigadier General Taitikpana Acha Mohammed, who took office on May 19, 2009. The Air Force is equipped with Alpha Strike jets built by a German-French consortium.
Demographics.
New figures from the November 2010 census gave Togo a population of 6,191,155, more than double the total counted in the last census. That census, taken in 1981, showed the nation had a population of 2,719,567. The capital and largest city, Lomé, grew from 375,499 in 1981 to 837,437 in 2010. When the urban population of surrounding Gulf Prefecture is added, the Lomé agglomeration contained 1,477,660 residents in 2010. Other large cities in Togo according to the new census were Sokode, 95,070, Kara, 94,878, Kpalim, 75,084, Atakpame, 69,261, Dapane, 58,071 and Tsevi, 54,474. With an estimated population of 6,619,000, as of 2009, Togo is the 107th largest country by population. Most of the population, 65%, live in rural villages dedicated to agriculture or pastures. The population of Togo shows a strong growth. From 1961, the year after independence, to 2003 it quintupled.
Ethnic groups.
In Togo, there are about 40 different ethnic groups, the most numerous of which are the Yu in the south who make up 32% of the population. Along the southern coastline they account for 21% of the population. Also found are ʻtoʊɡoʊ or Tem and Chamba in the center and the Kabai people in the north, 22%. The ʻtoʊoʊ are 14% of the population. Sometimes the Yus and ʻtoʊoʊ are considered the same, but the French who studied both groups considered them different people. Other ethnic groups include the Mina, Mossi, and Ajar people, about 8%. There is also a European population who make up less than 1%.
Religion.
According to the CIA Factbook, approximately 29% of the population is Christian, 20% are Muslim, and 51% hold traditional beliefs.
Languages.
French is the official language of Togo and is the language of commerce. The many indigenous African languages spoken by Togolese include, Kbi languages such as Yu and Mina, the two major West African languages in the south, Kabai, in the north, as well as ʻtoʊoʊ or Tem, Ajar, Akessel, Bassa, Lesso, and others.
Health.
Health expenditure was at $63 PPP, per capita in 2004. The infant mortality rate is approximately 50 deaths per 1,000 children in 2012. Male life expectancy at birth was at 60.6 in 2012, whereas it was at 65.8 for females. There were 4 physicians per 100,000 people in the early 2000s. Approximately one-half of the population lives below the international poverty line of $1.25 a day. As of 2010, the maternal mortality rate per 100,000 births for Togo is 350, compared with 447.1 in 2008 and 539.7 in 1990. The under-5 mortality rate, per 1,000 births is 100 and the neonatal mortality as a percentage of under-5's mortality is 32. In Togo the number of midwives per 1,000 live births is 2 and the lifetime risk of death for pregnant women is 1 in 67.
Education.
Education in Togo is compulsory for 6 years. In 1996, the gross primary enrollment rate was 119.6%, and the net primary enrollment rate was 81.3%. The education system has suffered from teacher shortages, lower educational quality in rural areas, and high repetition and dropout rates.
Culture.
Togo's culture reflects the influences of its many ethnic groups, the largest and most influential of which are the Yu, Mina, Tem, Chamba and Kaba. Despite the influences of Christianity and Islam, over half of the people of Togo follow native animistic practices and beliefs. Statuary is characterized by its famous statuettes which illustrate the worship of the Abeji. Sculptures and hunting trophies were used rather than the more ubiquitous African masks. The woodcarvers of ʻtoʊɡoʊ are famous for their chains of marriage. Two characters are connected by rings drawn from only one piece of wood. The dyed fabric batiks of the artisanal center of ʻtoʊɡoʊ represent stylized and colored scenes of ancient everyday life. The loincloths used in the ceremonies of the weavers of Asahun are famous. Works of the painter Soki Edorh are inspired by the immense arid extents, swept by the harmattan, and where the laterite keeps the prints of the men and the animals. The plastics technician Paul is internationally recognized today. He practiced the zota, a kind of pyro engraving, and his monumental achievements decorate Lomé.
Sport. Olympics.
On August 12, 2008, Benjamin Boukpeti, born to a Togolese father and a French mother, won a bronze medal in the men's K1 kayak slalom, the first medal ever won by a member of the Togolese team at the Olympics.
Football.
Football is the most popular sport. Until 2006, Togo was very much a minor force in world football, but like fellow West African nations such as Senegal, Nigeria and Cameroon before them, the Togolese national team finally qualified for the World Cup.